Good morning and welcome to Daybreak. I'm Kelsey Metzger.
And I'm Chris Hoffman. Coming up on Daybreak, Pennsylvania has a new governor. We also have your coverage of your state and national election day results.
Plus, the Pens and the Steelers are on a hot roll right now. We have all of that coming up.
Kelsey, it's Monday morning, and you know what? That weekend, it was cold and wet. We even saw traces of snow in the higher elevations.
Snow flurries in the higher elevations. Your worst nightmare. Snow has already come. Aaron's here with our morning look for this morning. Aaron, do we see any snow this morning?
No, we have no rain so far, but we're going to be seeing some nicer weather coming up. It's going to be mostly sunny this morning. We're going to also have the temperatures that are highs in the upper 50s, so if you can try to get out there while it's still warm and not snowing, I would definitely take advantage of that. We also have winds that are going to be south by southwest at 6 miles per hour, so not too much wind, but I would definitely just try to make your way out there before it starts snowing again. We're getting to that time of the year, so I'd try to just have your time outside while you still can. Now we're going to toss it over to national news with Emily Brack.
Former pharmaceuticals executive Gigi Jordan was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter for feeding a lethal drug concoction to her autistic 8-year-old son. Jordan testified that she killed the boy to prevent him from being sexually abused. The jury accepted her claim that she acted in a state of extreme emotional disturbance. She faces a 5 to 25-year prison sentence. Jordan displayed little emotion when the verdict was announced at the end of a 2-month trial in Manhattan. 2 days after Carlesha Freeland Gaither's abduction was captured on video in Philadelphia, police say they have a lead across the state line. A man was seen using Gaither's ATM card at a bank in Aberdeen, Maryland. Officials are offering rewards totaling $42,000 for information leading to the case's resolution. The survivalist Eric Freen, accused of gunning down a Pennsylvania state trooper and dodging authorities for 48 days, had a laptop computer to access the internet while on the run, raising the possibility that he kept track of efforts to find him. Freen was found in Tannersville, Pennsylvania at an abandoned airport hangar. Prosecutors have said they'll seek the death penalty. Dr. Robert Ferrante of Pittsburgh is charged with lacing his wife's energy drink with cyanide last year, killing 41-year-old Dr. Autumn Klein. Former Allegheny County medical examiner Cyril Wecht took the stand and testified that the cause and manner of death should be listed as undetermined because of health issues that could explain her death. 90-year-old Arnold Abbott and 2 pastors in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, were feeding the homeless in public on Sunday when they were stopped by police in a park. This is one of the first crackdowns under a new ordinance banning public food sharing. The trio faces possible jail time and a $500 fine. Police say providing the homeless with a meal and keeping them in that cycle on the street is not productive, so the law will continue to be enforced. That's all I have for national news. Let's send it over to Kelsey and Chris.
Well, Kelsey, in this gubernatorial election, we knew a Tom was going to win, and it just ended up being Tom Wolf in the end.
That's right. James Hill joins us again for the final time this week for a look back at the election results.
Yeah, hey guys, Chris, you stole that joke from me. I definitely said a Tom was going to win the other week, but yes, Tom Wolf is going to be the new governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, beating out incumbent Governor Tom Wolf. And see, Chris, you know how much that always got me, beating out incumbent Governor Tom Corbett. Tom Corbett's loss, though, it's not just historic in many ways, considering that that is the first incumbent governor to not win a second term in the history of this state since we have allowed incumbent governors to run. That includes like Milton Sharp, Dick Thornborough, of course, Bob Casey Sr., and Ed Rendell. He's the first governor to not win a second term. The other historic thing, this was actually one of the most expensive races in Pennsylvania history. A total of $73 million was spent between the two candidates on the race, including, of course, television ads and things of that nature. Well, you know, Tom Corbett, he was actually running a deficit throughout this entire campaign, down actually about 11 points throughout most of it. Looking at the very first graphic you guys are going to see, it came in the election results at 99.62% of those results are still in. And Tom Wolf, he did sweep the election with 54%, 54.90% specifically, and 45.10% specifically. That came out with Tom Wolf having 1.8 million votes and Tom Corbett 1.5 million votes. So even though it was a pretty significant win, Chris, it really wasn't that out of the blue. I was expecting a lot higher margin for that. And one more thing, a quick update, Chris, before we get to that thing we were talking about, that Philadelphia kidnapping suspect. She was safely returned to her family, and that suspect is now facing jail time. A quick update to that story Emily mentioned earlier. But Chris, all this money spent, you would have thought that it would have been a much bigger turnout when it comes to voter elections, not only for Tom Wolf, but the actual margin that he won the election.
Yeah, people had said Tom Wolf is going to win by double digits.
Yeah.
It wasn't even really double digits. It was inside of 10%.
It was 10
and
pretty
about,
much, yeah.
Probably about 9.7. What do you really think Tom Wolf did to make the difference? Because he still won by a substantial margin, but it was not as much as people thought in the pre-polls.
Well, yeah. I think, Chris, we can all agree. He had the fair lead coming out when it comes to television coverage. You were seeing some really significant ads for Tom Wolf long before some of Tom Corbett's attack ads started to hit him. So I think that's really what pushed him over the edge. People forget the medium that television is these days when it comes to how people, decide who they're going to vote for. If you're not too informed, you're going off the ads that you see. And he was on television stations in this state a lot earlier than Tom Corbett had the chance to.
Now, another thing I want to take a look at, we have numbers that say about only in the 20% of voter turnout there, James. What explains that? I mean, this was an election. It was pretty well publicized. It was supposed to be a big deal.
Well, yeah, Chris, we're going to talk about this a little later in the show. Nationally, voter turnout was remarkably low for this election. And Pennsylvania, yes, only in the 20s. I mean, 1.8 and 1.5. This is a state of 12 million people. So that's even not a lot of people to vote just in general. People are saying that this low voter turnout, it's due to the fact that for the most part, people seem to be fed up with how government's operating, Democrat or Republican, the gridlock that's been not only gripping the nation, but our very own Commonwealth. It's put people off to government as a whole.
Real quick before we go to break here, do you see that taking an effect in 2 years during the presidential election?
Well, I mean, honestly, Chris, right now people seem to just be so fed up with government. I think we're going to have low turnouts for the next several elections. It's also depending on which candidates emerge to take this. Many people, of course, thinking Hillary Clinton's going to take the race, but there's no obvious Republican who can join her when it comes to the 2014 presidential election. Of course, it depends on how popular said people are. Of course, people are saying Chris Christie and Jeb Bush are other people are also thinking, and they have pretty big following. So it might make for a larger presidential turnout, but it all depends on who runs, really.
All right, thank you very much for everything you've done this semester, James. We'll see you later in the show as well. But coming up on Daybreak, it's a great time to be a Pittsburgh sports fan. For the Penguins and the Steelers, they're both on a roll. It's all coming up in your Daybreak Sports Report.